the one thing I've always focused on from a property standpoint, and it's not always going to work out, right, is literally you want to be like the head of a flower, right, where your property's that center and you've got all these petals that are essentially the home ranges of these bucks. Because, the average landowner is not going to own usually more than 100 acres, probably in most cases more than 70 acres. And so you're never going to hold that buck on your property, right? But you want him to have an overlap on your property, and then if you make it good, you essentially can keep, even though that might be his whole home range, if 80% of his time is on the piece that covers your property, then you've got a better chance to kill him. You just got to figure out how to do that. And every deer is different. To me, even with food and cover, pressure's number one. And we've seen that even in this Ohio lease we have. It's 400 acres of cover in the middle of pasture and ag country. I mean, literally, if you look at it from an aerial, you're like, that's where the bucks are. The dude is on his property riding around every day, multiple times a day. And so when we go in and say, or he asks like, hey, why aren't you guys hunting here? It's like, there's no deer. Like, they don't stay here because you're on the property just driving around all day, every day.
Mm-hmm. It's the lowest hole in the bucket.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. That's, what's even worse is like if like the property I have here, where we have 15.5 acres of food plots, I have cuttings, I have 10 acres of switchgrass, we have 6 water holes, tons of mock scrapes. We've done a lot to it, a lot of work in 2 years. But if I went out there and drove through the property and hunted it poorly, it even makes it worse, because now I'm attracting every deer in the neighborhood knows about this property. They like the habitat, and I just go out and spook them.
Yeah.
So I'm educating the entire neighborhood, where you're almost better off if you're going to hunt it poorly, is just to do nothing to the land, because then the deer are none the wiser. You go out and sit on opening day, you go out and sit during the rut, you sit on and really that's true. I mean, there's a lot of good hunters too. It's almost like someone could pop into a property next to me right here, and if they're a good hunter, they wouldn't have to do much to their land. They just sit off to the side during the rut and take one of the bucks that comes through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then they're not educating the deer. They're just popping in, hunting the deer, none the wiser. They just, that. So you kind of look at it, habitat can be a bad thing. Just because someone spends $20,000 a year on habitat doesn't mean that they're going to have a great property.
Yeah. Do you think you can over habitat, like the pressure?
Yes.
Like, can you outdo the pressure with good habitat?
No.
Yeah.
No, I think the more habitat you have, if it's being hunted poorly, the more it magnifies the problem.
I think in that same kind of breath, I've seen a lot of people go into a raw property and implant a ton of food, which in theory would make a great impact. But then from just being in the property or hunting the property or whatever, those deer are coming to those locations, as are the humans, and it didn't do anything.
Well, unfortunately, that probably plays into my question earlier too, is because what I can do is go and plant a bunch of switchgrass and I can create some serious thickets. What I can't do is, probably get our group of guys to hunt way less.
Yeah. And I see what you're saying. To me personally, I'd rather have the good habitat than not, just because you'll enjoy seeing pictures, even if they're at night.
Yeah.
I'd rather have it than not. I enjoy the habitat work just as much.
Sure.
I mean, it's fun.
Sure.
Playing it all out. And then that's always a discussion for, you have that, try to get another little property somewhere else that you can hunt.
That's what I've done. That's where I killed that buck this year, actually, is like, I've kind of accepted it. It is what it is. And we can have fun with that. And I'll still do some work, but when it comes to killing
some of those family traditions, that's so much fun. I mean, that's part of hunting too. So,
well, that's what made killing my buck this year, Jeff, so special, was that everybody was in camp. Even my wife came up and we were hanging out, and I was able to let them go and hunt, and I slipped away and I killed a giant on a property 5 miles away, and they got to bring it back. And fortunately, everybody was happy for me and stuff, but.
Well, I mean, it's been pressure. Up in the mountain, I've killed plenty of great deer on that place. I put a lot of work, a lot of money into that place. It's not mine. I just have permission on it, and I enjoy having it close. This year, they hunted the shit out of it, and I didn't see a mature deer since September 15th. Doesn't matter what I do.
And that can be really discouraging. And I almost, if it was my own choice, it's tough, because you can spend so much time and money on habitat improvements. And if it's just magnifying, I can give you so many examples of clients I go to, and that's such a predictable progression. You buy the land, you're so excited. The first year is your best because, again, the deer are none the wiser. You're just popping in, you try to hunt it well, and it could be good hunters. Then you put habitat improvements on it. You start overhunting the food plots, especially. You drive through the property, whatever it might be, and by year 7, you're frustrated. You're at a point where we need to make changes or we need to sell the land.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Not getting what you want. And that's where you need to step back. And a lot of times clients are hiring me, and you might have seen this, Jeremy, but clients hire you to go in and then make improvements on their land. But then you're looking at improvements to their hunting as much or more than the improvements you're making on the land. So once you have that structure of hunting, meaning how do you access the land? What are the hard access areas you can't change? What can you change? Are you willing to change them? Once you figure that structure out of access, then you can plan where the food plots are.
Yep.
And once you have the food structure down, then you can plan where bedding areas are and tree stands and locations.
Oh, dude.
And then you can put that all together. But a lot of people do it and, well, here's an open field. Let's put a food plot there.
100%.
Here's a cool spot for bedding. Let's put a bedding area there. But none of it helps you hunt it. It makes it worse.
Take me